Upheaval, Reckoning, Chapter 42, Kings, Heroes, and Breakers.
The smell of pine and the distinct knock of her hooves going over hardwood brought a smile to Applejack. She had been walking far too often on stone these days, whether it was the regal marble of the royal palace or the grim granite of Fangbreaker Fortress. Stone was nice, but the sight of warm, natural browns, and the sound of well-used floorboards creaking, and the feel of a smooth finish against her hooves, made her more comfortable than any castle or fortress. When her foreleg went up to open the door on its own, Applejack realized that something was wrong. She couldn't be home. She should be in the royal palace, resting up before she went with her friends to this gravitas pony. What in tarnation was she? This had happened before. As expected, she had a large stallion hoof attached to a leg covered in deep russet fur. The door she just opened led into an enormous bedroom. A red brick fireplace dominated the right side of the room. The flames roaring within it lit the place up in a bright orange glow and made it uncomfortably hot. It was the bed that held Appleslice's attention. The sheets were wool, dyed red and decorated with apple motifs. Its wooden bedposts were lovingly polished and carved to resemble apple branches, complete with fruit and leaves. A very old, very worn stallion lay in the bed, all but buried up to his neck in blankets. Upon seeing Appleslice, the stallion smiled wanly and tried to rise. Appleslice's hesitant hoofsteps became swift, alarmed ones. He was by the old stallion's side in an instant, front hoofs gently pressed against the old stallion's shoulders. "It's just me, Pa," Appleslice said. "No need to trouble yourself on my account." This must be Applecore. There was a tremble in Appleslice's voice, a slight tremble that told so much. Affection for his father, a great deal of sorrow for seeing him like this. This couldn't be the Appleslice who supposedly attacked his father. "You took your time, son of mine," Applecore said. His voice was barely a whisper, and even that strained him. "Day more and it'd be a funeral you'd come home to." "Pa, don't joke about—" Applecore frowned. The lines made his face look like badly crumpled parchment. "I'm dying, Slice," he said. "I can feel it. A chill that this mountain of blankets and that inferno over there can't keep away. An apple should face the truth head on." "Pa." Tears welled up. Applejacks or Appleslices, it was impossible to tell. It didn't matter either. "Hush, Colt. Listen. I'm tiring quickly, and this is my last chance." Appleslice swallowed. "I'm listening." "You must have heard by now. Princess Celestia wants the Apple family to join her in her heartland." Applecore smiled. His thin lips looked so stretched that they looked ready to crack and bleed. "Must be because we're such shining examples of her ponyhood ideals. Or she had one of our reds and didn't want to go without." Applecore's shoulders quivered. He opened his mouth, but all that came out were dry, hacking noises. For a horrible moment, he sounded like he was being racked by a coughing fit. It turned out that he was only laughing. "Pa," Appleslice said, "about that." The laughter died abruptly. "I said no." Applecore's eyebrows furrowed deeply. "The Apple family has always supported the Legion. We stay here." The defiant expression softened. "Would have had Leaf put that down in a rambling, fancy-worded letter, except Peel wanted to delay it. He said that this answer was going to decide the family's future, so the next generation should decide." Applecore coughed. Appleslice moved to help him by rubbing his back, but he shrugged the effort away. "Would have whipped your brother for that, but he's right. I'll be dead before that barrier goes up. I shouldn't make the final decision on something I won't live to see, so our answer will be up to my successor." His smile returned as he placed a hoof over Appleslice's. "That's you, son." "Pa." Appleslice's unsure tone already said what he felt without any words. "Pa, you know that I'm the worst farmer in all of Equestria. I can't even touch our crops. Peel, he's the one with the skills and the know-how. Applecore held his son's hoof tighter. "Peel does have the know-how," he said. Since I've taken to bed, he's been managing the business, from the planting to the harvest to the selling. He works hard, and he thinks smart. Then why don't you... Because the Apple family is more than just the business. Applecore started coughing again. This time, he didn't protest when Apple Slice put a hoof against his back. I trust Peel to bring in the bits, to keep you all fed and to keep a roof over your heads. But the family's principles, the family's direction, I can only trust you. Applecore's gaze hardened. You serve with the Legion. You're not mired in the day-to-day like the others, so you understand why the Apple family must stay. That's why I picked you. I think I got it. Apple Slice wanted the apples to stay in the barrier lands, but the family ended up in the Heartland anyway, so... Applejack remembered the Apple family version again. Granny Smith had mentioned Apple Peel. It must have been Apple Peel. He must have done something underhoof to get Apple Slice cast out so the rest of the family could move to the Heartland. He must have made all that stuff up about Apple Slice going berserk to cover up what he did. Apple Slice matched his father's grip. I understand, Pa, he said. You get some rest now. I'll see you in the morning. He headed for the door. Applecore's parting words drifted after him like smoke. No, you won't. Apple Slice closed the door behind him before letting out a long sigh. He caught himself short when he noticed that he wasn't alone in the hallway. Just a few feet away, an earth pony stallion with a light green coat and a short, curly white mane stood facing him. So what did Pa have to say? The other stallion asked. Peel, that's... Apple Peel snorted. Oh, relax. He insists on keeping it a big secret, but every pony already knows that he'd pick you. Apple Peel extended a foreleg when Apple Slice walked towards him, then put it on his shoulder when he was close enough. By the way, welcome home, big brother. Applejack hesitated at such affection being shown between the two brothers. She had expected Apple Peel to be such a villain. He didn't have an evil grin or a haughty smirk. He didn't even speak in a disrespectful tone. He's just good at hiding, that's all. It was Apple Slice's turn to snort. Home, is it? He asked. You know, from all the forced smiles and cold stares I got when I came here, I could have sworn I wandered into the Pears farm by mistake. Apple Peel chuckled, then walked over to a nearby window. He opened it and climbed outside. Come on, he said. They climbed up the side of the house, expertly navigating the windowsills and beams until they made it to the roof. There they lay back first on the shingles and looked up to the night sky. For a while they enjoyed the night breeze and admired the full moon out. I'm sorry if you didn't get the welcome you deserved, Apple Peel said. You're a homecoming hero, Slice. You should have gotten a feast, but the worst welcome in Equestria won't change that you're a hero. He looked up again. Every pony's just worried about the princess's invitation and Pa's condition. Throwing a party just fell to the wayside. It's not just that, is it? Apple Slice asked. Apple Peel sighed. A lot of folks are worried that you being a Legionnaire means the family's going to refuse the invitation to the Heartland. Sounds like every pony's made the decision to go there already, Apple Slice said. He tried to sound flippant, and failed. A lot have, Apple Peel said, including me. Peel. Hear me out, Slice. The peaches have already accepted. The cherries and the oats, too. That's nearly all our business partners, all our important clients. Woodsdale, Mistleton, and the Applevale. They're going to be part of the Heartland. If we stay in the barrier lands, the Apple family will suffer. What of Pa's wish, Peel? Apple Slice asked. Pa's led the family through good and bad times, Peel said. I've always respected him and I always will. But Pa, he's always been so attached to the Legion and its work. You know that he always wanted to be a Legionnaire, but Great-Grandpa groomed him for farm work. Wistfulness gripped Peel's voice. These days, it doesn't matter if we tripled our earnings with the biggest harvest ever. The most important news was another big Legion victory thanks to the legendary Apple Slice. I won't pretty it up. Pa's been living his dream through you. That's what's colored his decision. You make it sound like Pa only made that decision because he's deluding himself, Apple Slice said. His muscles tensed, and his voice hardened. There's a lot of worth in wanting to support the Legion. That's not what I meant at all, Apple Peel said. We'd all be dead without the Legion, Any foal can tell you that. Then what are you telling me that isn't something I'd hear from a foal? Appleslice asked. Pa's still alive, and you're already telling me to go against him. His voice softened when Apple Peel flinched. Sorry, I'm not gonna hurt you, Peel. I know, it's just hard not to flinch when the pony known for strangling giant bear monsters raises his voice at you. Apple Peel cleared his throat. Look, if the family stays, we'll have to start from scratch. Half the harvest will rot in our cellars while we scramble to find buyers. The next year, maybe it'll be a little better, or worse. He stood up and looked down on Appleslice. I'm not the successor, Slass. You are. All I can tell you is the side of the truth that Pa won't. Appleslice continued to stare up at the night sky. Peel, he said softly. I have no place in the Heartland. My place is here, with the Legion. If you all go... Will you really hold us all here for your sake? Apple Peel asked. No! Appleslice slammed a hoof against the roof. The wood cracked on impact. He looked at Apple Peel and sighed. Let's face it, Peel. I can't lead this family. When the time comes, I'll send you all off to the Heartland and give the position to you. And you'll stay here with the Legion? Apple Peel asked. By yourself? Hey, I've made a few friends in the Legion. They'll be more than enough. Applejack's chest ached. Appleslice was no better at lying than she was. Apple Peel offered a hoof towards Appleslice, who took it and stood up. Thank you for understanding, Slass, he said. Appleslice was about to say something, but his vision faded and his hearing dimmed. Applejack opened her eyes. She was on a bed in their shared quarters. As the vision receded, she looked towards the chain she kept by her bedside. As she expected, she caught the last gleam of light from it just as it dimmed. What had happened to the succession after that? She had expected Apple Peel to be the sort to make up stories to discredit his brother so he could take over, but the two of them were so amiable to one another that it just didn't make sense. What had happened? Who was to blame in that terrible misunderstanding? There was no way of knowing until the next time she had a vision. For now, she focused on what had happened and what will happen. Princess Celestia planned on attacking Gravitas in Skymere Lake. They were all supposed to rest up and make their preparations for what was going to be a big fight. She sighed at the empty, unused beds. Land's sakes, was I the only pony who thought getting some sleep before doing something dangerous was a good idea? She asked. She put on her hat and coiled the chain around her neck. She hoped that her friends were, at least, nearby. I want all of you to prepare yourselves before we go to Skymere Lake, Celestia said. Rest your bodies and steel your minds. Not only will we face a powerful enemy, we will also behold the Old Kingdom. Twilight continued to wait. She didn't know what for. Perhaps it was for acknowledgement, but what kind? Was she waiting for Princess Celestia to have a few more words just for her? No. Faithful student or not, that was arrogant. Perhaps she was waiting for her mentor to look guiltily at the crescent-shaped cut across the floor, the only sign that there had been an alicorn there who had been cut down so quickly and viciously that it left them all dumbfounded. No, that was also arrogant. I have never killed a mortal before. The other meaning in those words was clear now. Princess Celestia was no stranger to killing some pony in a welter of blood and ashes. She didn't want to hurt mortals, but she had shown no compunction towards attacking her own kind. Celestia, just like us, huh? Twilight thought. For years, Celestia's kind demeanor and peaceful ways had masked this side of her. Seeing it so vividly made the great gulf between them even clearer. Without another word, Celestia turned around and began assisting the legionnaires that had come in to take care of their fallen comrades. Twilight Sparkle, Luna called out. Twilight nearly jumped. Yes, Your Highness? She asked. Are you all right? You look a little dazed. Luna nodded towards the throne room's exit. A little walk to clear your thoughts, perhaps. They left the throne room together. Applejack was saying something earlier about getting some shut-eye. Twilight considered doing the same, but all these feelings right now would just keep her awake. Forgive my sister's abruptness, Twilight Sparkle, Luna said after a while. Every second Gravitas spends on this world only worsens her mood. I feel she might explode if he lasts a month. Twilight glanced towards the throne room. It could just be mood. After all, the princess has had very few reasons to feel considerate of others these days. It couldn't be just that. The change in Princess Celestia was not merely inflicted upon her. It was brought out. "About that," she said. "What happened with Gravitas that has her so upset anyway?" Luna raised an eyebrow. "Besides him wanting to kill every pony in Equestria. I mean, there's more to it than that, right? Not that killing every pony isn't a good enough reason, or you can stop floundering." Luna was smiling now that they were away from the throne room's heavy atmosphere. "I know what you mean, and there is. I don't know much of the details, but I do know that the animosity between my sister and Gravitas has existed as early as when Lexarius was still Lexarius." Twilight tried to imagine being angry with some pony for hundreds of years, and failed. "What about you, Your Highness?" she asked. "You don't seem to share that same animosity." "I will certainly do everything to protect Equestria from Gravitas," Luna replied. "But as Big Sister said, I've never had to face him during a council meeting. I think it's a good thing, too. Some pony has to hold her back at some point." The image of Celestia created by the conversation was too uncomfortable to keep thinking of. Twilight was silent as they walked past injured ponies being carried off and bloodstains being cleaned. Eventually, she decided to change the topic to something she had been meaning to ask as early as when Prince Tirado first narrated the various rebellions. "Your Highness, what is the king like?" "His Majesty, King Sanctus Dominus, 16th Ascendant to the throne, is beloved by his subjects for his stern but even-hoofed rule," Luna said solemnly. "He ascended after a troubled time when the Void Rift crisis threatened to consume great portions of our heavenly realm. After overcoming this crisis, he chose to share the throne with Her Majesty, Divina Gratia. Together they have led the Eternal Herd to an era of stability and peace." Twilight frowned. "That sounds like something I'd have read off of a book, Your Highness." "Which is exactly how I came upon it," Luna said. "I was born after the first rebellion, Twilight Sparkle, so I've never met His Majesty." "I've noticed that you don't call him father." Twilight bit her lip. That was easily too far. Her heart skipped a beat when the smile faded from Luna's face. "That is a privilege I dare not take before I stand before him for the first time," Luna said quietly. "With everything that's transpired, I can't say I'm looking forward to that encounter." "But you've done a lot for Equestria," Twilight said. "I'm sure he'll be proud to call you his daughter." She was relieved to see that some of Luna's smile had returned. "We'll see," Luna said. She stopped walking, prompting Twilight to do the same. Pinkie Pie suddenly ran past them. She had her stone tablet out, and it was glowing. "We must part ways here, Twilight Sparkle. There's another pony I would like to speak to before we head out." Luna flapped her wings and hovered. "Thank you for indulging me. Try to get some rest." She flew off towards Pinkie's direction. Princess Luna had just turned a corner when another familiar voice came from the end of the hallway. "Tell the nobles that the next pony who sends me this kind of proposition is getting clapped in irons. Also pass this along to the rest of the Royal Guard. Any pony who thinks it's good use of their time to pass these letters along is on latrine duty for a month." "Yes, Unicorn Guard Captain." That was Shining Armor and another Royal Guard. A rather furious Shining Armor and a cowed subordinate. Twilight trotted towards the sound, turning a corner as she did so. As she had expected, she found her scowling, still-armored brother and a sheepish-looking Royal Guard. What she didn't expect, however, was to find Princess Cadence and Vanguard Clash. Shining Armor's right foreleg was heavily bandaged from shoulder to hoof. A great splotch of red stood out just above his knee. A few minor cuts also marred his face, making his scowling visage even more disturbing. "Shining Armor, please," Cadence said. "You're going to reopen your wounds." "Sorry, dear," Shining Armor sighed. "It's just the nerve of them. We barely drive back an attack, and here they are, sniffing after Twilight like—"
"Armor."
Vanguard tapped Shining Armor on the shoulder and pointed towards Twilight. "Oh!" Shining Armor's scowl vanished in an instant. "Hey, Twily! Glad to see you come out of this a lot better than me and Clash." Portions of Vanguard's armor had been removed to tend to his wounds. In particular, his right shoulder was bloody and bandaged. His champron was also off, revealing small cuts to his forehead and cheeks. "I'm so glad the two of you are all right," Twilight said. "What were you talking about a few seconds ago?" A look of embarrassment crossed Shining Armor's face, followed by a frown. "An unimportant matter which, of course, some nobles have decided to bring up when we've got regenerating monsters popping up inside the palace." Another group of royal guards made their way towards Shining Armor. He looked at her sheepishly. "Looks like I'm needed elsewhere," he said. He patted Twilight on the shoulder and kissed Cadence on the cheek before leaving. Cadence watched forlornly as Shining Armor limped off before facing Twilight. "And I've got reports to make to Princess Celestia," she said. "Is it about Skymere Lake?" Twilight asked. "Yes. It's great to see you well, Twilight. I hope we get a better chance to speak when everything has calmed down." Cadence flew off, leaving Twilight and Vanguard together. They made their way to the quarters Twilight shared with her friends.
"You should be resting, Twilight Sparkle,"
Vanguard said. He stepped gingerly with his right foreleg.
"I already know what Princess Celestia has asked of you and the others."
"And I already heard that from Princess Luna earlier," Twilight replied. "I am resting, even if I'm not dozing off. What about you? You're injured, but you're still walking around."
"I'm not going with you,"
Vanguard said.
"Most of the Legion here has been ordered to regroup, secure everything, then provide reinforcements."
"Wait, you're not going with us? Why?"
"Shockingly enough, I'm not an element of harmony,"
Vanguard said.
"Not every pony gets to teleport around with royalty."
Twilight hadn't expected this, even though Vanguard was right and she should have. "It's fine," she thought. "I have the others with me. He'll probably come with the reinforcements." Outwardly, she matched his smile as they walked the halls. "So, what do you think Shining Armor was talking about back there? He looked pretty upset."
"A noble sent him a letter,"
Vanguard replied.
"He didn't read it out loud, but my guess is it was an invitation to a dinner meeting. With you included, of course."
"That's not so bad," Twilight said. "Why would that upset him?" Vanguard raised an eyebrow.
"Now I'm really shocked. You're from Canterlot, aren't you? Shouldn't you be familiar with how these things work with nobility?"
"I was a student," Twilight snapped. "I didn't have time to associate with nobles." Her eyes narrowed. "And how are you so familiar with how these things work with nobility?" Vanguard shrugged.
"Mother used to be great Delve nobility until they disowned her for marrying a dog. But that's a different story. This long story short, some noble wants to marry you."
Twilight's eyes widened. "What?"
"I'm surprised it took them this long to act."
Vanguard saluted as two legionnaires stopped at attention when he passed them.
"Necessity forces action, it seems."
"And what could possibly necessitate marrying me?"
"Avoiding Legion work, currying favor with the royalty, getting an advantage over other nobles, being the husband of a powerful unicorn mage who's also the bearer of the element of magic, and Princess Celestia's favored student, connections with the unicorn guard captain and a royal niece. There are others, I'm sure. As the events that led to the reunification become clearer to the nobility, so does the evidence that you are a very influential pony."
"What about love?" Twilight asked. "Shouldn't that count?"
"Love can lead to marriage,"
Vanguard replied.
"or years of building a home and a family can lead to love. Speaking from a noble's point of view, it would be more prudent to secure other advantages, whether love enters the picture or not. Regardless of how you feel about it, Twilight Sparkle, you are easily the most eligible mare in all of Equestria."
Twilight's heart throbbed just a bit louder for a few beats when he said that. "What about you?" she asked softly.
"Hmm?"
"Does all of Equestria include you, Vanguard?" Vanguard snorted. His silence racked Twilight's nerves worse than the fear of a surprise test from the princess.
"I'm just a soldier,"
he finally said. Her heart sank.
"I wouldn't know what to do with power and influence in high society if it were offered to me."
I see." Twilight's voice trailed off. The silence wasn't just between the two of them this time. The hallway they now walked was free of commotion. What about? She tried to walk a little closer, even brush against him in the process. She nearly tripped over her own hooves.
Steady,
Vanguard said. He reached out and pulled her close to keep her from falling over. What about love? Vanguard didn't answer. Twilight pressed her lips together, unwilling to move out of fear that doing so might affect his answer.
Twilight.
He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. With his hoof so close to her chest, she didn't doubt that he could feel her heart racing.
We've been through a lot, you and I. Even if I've only known you for such a short time, you've become very dear to me.
He gently pushed her back until she was at a foreleg's length.
But love.
His lips twisted. Seeing them felt like being stabbed. She could already hear the no.
It's too sudden for me. Sometimes the burns still hurt. And you, I don't dare.
Twilight's eyebrows furrowed. Don't dare what?
Never mind. I need time, Twilight. And Equestria needs you.
Twilight blinked a tear away. Some of the pain subsided, letting her force a smile. Yeah. Time. I've got that. Vanguard smiled in return.
Now get some rest.